There is a quiet moment in a man's life that almost no one talks about. Yet, it changes everything. It is the point of no return where he stops measuring his worth through women's approval. Not because he is angry, not because he has been rejected too many times, and certainly not because he has given up on love. It happens when a man reaches a level of internal maturity where the old strategies of chasing, pleasing, performing, and proving suddenly feel empty. He realizes, calmly and without drama, that the question, "Am I good enough for her?" has been silently draining his life force for years. This shift is subtle. From the outside, it can look like withdrawal or indifference. Internally, it feels like pressure leaving the chest. The anxious need to impress dissolves. In its place appears a quiet, grounded confidence that does not need applause. He no longer scans messages for hidden meanings, no longer adjusts his personality to fit what he imagines a woman wants, and no longer feels that his value rises or falls based on attention. He is not rebelling against women. He is returning to himself. Here is the paradox that confuses so many people. When a man stops chasing, his attractiveness often increases dramatically. This is not magic, and it is not a tactic. What disappears is neediness, that almost invisible tension beneath words and actions that says, "Please choose me so I can feel whole." When that tension is gone, what remains is a man who is already at ease with his life. People can sense this immediately. It feels different to be around someone who is not trying to extract validation from you. Curiosity replaces resistance. A man who is content without external approval becomes more intriguing than any rehearsed charm or expensive gesture. His presence feels solid. His attention feels earned rather than begged for. This is why no technique, script, or strategy can replicate the effect. It is not something he does, it is something he no longer needs. This moment marks the beginning of a deeper transformation. Yet, before a man can fully step into this grounded state, he must first dismantle a habit that has shaped his interactions for years, the long-running performance he's been putting on without even realizing it. And that is where the real work begins. In the quiet ending of a role he once thought he had to play. One of the clearest signs that a man has stopped chasing is that the long, exhausting spectacle finally ends. For years, many men live as if they are actors on a stage they built themselves. Every interaction feels like an audition. Every message must be perfectly timed. Every pause must be analyzed. Tone, emojis, response speed, and silence all become loaded with meaning. He is not communicating, he is performing. And the audience he fears most is the woman he wants to impress. In this state, a man slowly reshapes himself into what he believes women desire. He becomes more agreeable than he truly is, more available than feels natural, and more careful than honest. Beneath all of this effort is a quiet fear: if the real version of him is revealed, she might lose interest. So he polishes a version that feels safer. Over time, this creates a strange inner split. Even when he succeeds and gets attention or enters a relationship, doubt never leaves. He wonders whether she likes him or only the character he's been playing so convincingly. This is why the performance is so draining. It requires constant vigilance. The man lives with the subtle anxiety of an imposter waiting to be exposed. The irony is painful. The more effort he puts into being chosen, the less present he becomes. His energy is scattered outward, chasing reactions instead of being anchored within himself. When the performance stops, something profound happens. Energy returns inward. Conversations become simpler. Responses become natural rather than calculated. He no longer feels the urge to fill silence or manufacture interest. A man named Lucas once described this moment clearly. He stopped initiating every conversation, stopped planning elaborate gestures, and stopped waiting for approval. That was when he realized that he had been trying to buy affection with emotional counterfeit money, offering effort instead of authenticity. The end of the spectacle does not make a man colder. It makes him real. His presence becomes steadier. His words fewer but more honest. This authenticity is not a strategy. It is a consequence of no longer being afraid of being seen. And once the performance ends, another realization inevitably follows, without the applause. He must finally confront a deeper question: what is my value when no one is watching? When a man stops chasing, he is forced to discover something many spend their entire lives avoiding: his own value, separate from attention, desire, or validation. Before this shift, his emotional state often swings like a pendulum. A warm message lifts him up. A delayed reply sends him into self-doubt. Without realizing it, he has handed over the authority to define his worth to someone else. His confidence becomes a hostage to another person's mood, availability, or interest. In this state, every small signal acts like a drug. A smile is a hit of dopamine. A compliment feels like oxygen. Silence, on the other hand, feels catastrophic. The absence of response is interpreted as rejection, not just of interest, but of identity. When a man lives this way, he is not relating to a woman as an equal human being. He is using her attention as a mirror to reassure himself that he exists and matters. When he stops chasing, the noise fades. What remains is silence. And that silence can be terrifying. It brings forward the question he has postponed for years: who am I when no one is choosing me? Many men realize, painfully, that they were using women as a shield against an inner emptiness they did not want to face. Without the distraction of pursuit, there is nowhere left to hide. A man named Julian encountered this after a devastating breakup. Instead of immediately seeking another relationship to numb the pain, he turned inward. He invested in his body, his work, his friendships, and even uncomfortable subjects like philosophy and self-reflection. Slowly, he rediscovered the simple taste of freedom. He began to like the man he was becoming, not because someone approved of him, but because he respected himself. This is the turning point. A man who knows his value no longer negotiates it. He does not accept crumbs of attention or ambiguous treatment. Women can sense this difference instantly. There is a profound gap between a man who asks to be valued and a man who knows he already is. And once this awareness takes root, it naturally leads to a powerful ability that many never develop: the art of walking away. Before a man understands his own value, he often mistakes endurance for love. He believes that patience, tolerance, and self-sacrifice are proof of commitment. So he stays. He analyzes mixed signals, forgives repeated disrespect, and tells himself that confusion is just part of romance. Deep down, he fears that leaving means failure, that walking away proves he was not enough to be chosen. Once his sense of self-worth solidifies, this illusion collapses. He begins to understand that walking away is not weakness, but one of the highest expressions of self-respect. Staying in a situation that slowly erodes dignity is far more damaging than facing temporary loneliness. A man who knows his value is no longer afraid of being alone, because he has experienced something worse: being emotionally abandoned while still present. This is where the art of walking away emerges. It is not dramatic. It does not involve accusations, ultimatums, or long speeches. It is quiet and decisive. A man named Wyatt experienced this shift clearly. Instead of endlessly discussing unclear intentions or trying harder to earn affection, he simply closed the door. No bitterness, no explanations designed to persuade. He chose himself without needing to be understood. The result is transformative. Time becomes precious. Attention becomes selective. When a man stops investing energy where it is not reciprocated, a natural filter activates. Manipulative dynamics lose their grip because they feed on emotional overinvestment. People who thrive on inconsistency drift away. Those who value stability and clarity begin to appear. Walking away does not make a man cold or detached. It makes him honest with himself. He no longer confuses attachment with intimacy or endurance with love. And as his boundaries strengthen, another pattern quietly dissolves, one that has trapped many men in unbalanced relationships, the need to rescue and heal others at the expense of themselves. Another unmistakable sign that a man has stopped chasing is that he abandons the role of the rescuer. Many men are quietly drawn into what can be called the noble savior illusion. They meet a woman who is wounded, confused, or emotionally chaotic, and something inside them activates. They believe that if they are patient enough, understanding enough, and self-sacrificing enough, they can heal her. They tell themselves that this devotion will make them irreplaceable. At first, this role feels meaningful. He becomes the listener, the supporter, the emotional anchor. He absorbs her pain, excuses her inconsistency, and downplays his own needs. Deep inside, there is a hope that his sacrifice will eventually be rewarded with loyalty, gratitude, or love. But this hope is rarely fulfilled. More often, his efforts are taken for granted, or worse, he is left for someone who invested far less. The uncomfortable truth is that the rescuer role destroys attraction. Sexual polarity fades when a man positions himself as a caretaker, therapist, or parent. Desire cannot thrive where one person is constantly managing the emotional instability of the other. Instead of being seen as a partner, he becomes a utility, safe, predictable, and emotionally available, but no longer desired. A man named Liam learned this painfully. He spent 3 years prioritizing his partner's emotional needs above everything else, neglecting his own goals, friendships, and growth. When the relationship ended, he was left not only heartbroken, but hollow. The life he had put on hold no longer felt like his own. The realization was brutal. His sacrifice did not create love, it erased himself. When a man stops chasing, this pattern ends. He understands that healthy relationships can only exist between two whole individuals. He stops seeking partners to fix and starts seeking partners to share life with. He recognizes that compassion does not require self-abandonment and that love does not demand constant rescue. This shift brings a new standard. He values reciprocity over intensity, calm over chaos, and emotional safety over drama disguised as passion. He no longer confuses emotional turbulence with depth. Instead, he looks for peace that feels alive, not exhausting. As this clarity settles in, yet another burden falls away. Without the need to save others or earn love through sacrifice, he becomes free from a different kind of trap, one that quietly governs many interactions, the pressure of expectations and outcomes. And it is only when those expectations dissolve that his presence becomes truly magnetic. When a man stops chasing, he also releases his grip on outcomes. In the past, every interaction carried a silent demand. The date had to go well. The message had to be answered. The connection had to progress according to an imagined script. His mind lived in the future, rehearsing success or bracing for rejection. This constant anticipation created tension, and that tension leaked into his words, his body language, and his energy. Living this way is exhausting. He tries to predict what the other person is thinking, searches for hidden meanings, and imagines worst-case scenarios before anything has even happened. Any sign of disinterest feels personal, like a verdict on his worth. He's not present, he's negotiating with reality. Letting go of expectations changes this completely. The man accepts a simple but liberating truth: he cannot control how someone else feels, and he cannot force himself to be chosen. A lack of interest is not a judgment of his value. It is often nothing more than incompatibility. This understanding removes a tremendous psychological burden. A man named Ethan experienced this shift clearly. When he stopped fixating on specific results, his behavior softened. He became more natural, more playful, and less afraid of saying the wrong thing. Without the pressure to impress or secure an outcome, his interactions felt lighter. Ironically, This is when he became most attractive. People felt safe around him because there was no hidden agenda. This is the paradox many men miss. When you do not need a particular outcome, you stop trying to control the moment. That absence of pressure creates space for authenticity. Conversations flow. Silences feel comfortable instead of threatening. The other person senses freedom rather than demand. Freedom from expectations does not mean indifference. It means openness without attachment. A man can be interested without being invested in a specific result. This state allows genuine connection to arise naturally, or to end cleanly without bitterness. And once a man is no longer consumed by outcomes, his attention becomes available for something far more important than dating dynamics. Energy that was once spent monitoring reactions begins to return to its rightful place, slowly, inevitably. He is pulled back toward the deeper center of his life, his personal mission and direction. When a man truly stops chasing, his life begins to reorganize itself around something deeper than romantic pursuit. He remembers that love was never meant to be the center of his existence, but a complement to it. Every man has a larger mission, a direction, a craft, or a path that gives his days weight and meaning. When he was chasing women, this purpose often faded into the background. His energy leaked into endless conversations, emotional analysis, and the need to be desired. Slowly, he became a supporting character in his own life. Returning to purpose feels like coming home. The man redirects his focus toward building something real, whether it is a business, a skill, a body of work, or a personal philosophy. A man named Oliver described this shift vividly. He stopped pouring hours into meaningless texting and redirected that energy into a long-delayed personal project. The confidence that emerged was different from anything external validation had ever given him. It was grounded in progress, competence, and self-trust. This is where attraction changes its nature. Women are not drawn to a man because he needs them. They are drawn to a man who is moving somewhere, building something, and inviting others to walk beside him. Purpose creates gravity. It gives his life structure, and within that structure, a relationship becomes an addition, not a lifeline. This transformation is not manipulation or emotional withdrawal. It is a deep internal evolution. The man moves from scarcity to abundance, from seeking approval to self-leadership. He does not stop loving. He stops betraying himself for the illusion of love. The man who chooses himself becomes calm, steady, and difficult to shake. He no longer runs toward validation because he has arrived where he needs to be. True adulthood begins here, in this quiet certainty. When a man stops chasing, it is not because he has lost hope in love. It is because he has found something more fundamental first himself.